With you on our side, Mr. Harper, we can attain our goals by simply making them laws.
This is worse than any hunch I had. Sounds like Cobra's financing Harper's campaign. Listen.
But what about the street gangs?
The street gangs are Cobra's pawns, Mr. Harper.
They think we really want
Whittier Greenway to win. It makes their hatred of you
more real, and their attacks on you
have swung the voters over to your side.
Simply arrest them once you take office. You'll be keeping your campaign promise.
Spare me this mockery of justice!
Yeah, what up? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another video. So before we get started, you already know what to do. Smash the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice. Share this video out and watch it all the way through to the end. Before we get started, I'd just like to thank all of my subscribers. I appreciate every one of you, and without I would not be where I am today as far as my progress on YouTube. As you all know from my community post, I recently was approved for monetization. So hopefully if the clips that I put into this video are approved with copyright, the option for super chat, which will be reinvested into this platform, is available. All right, and there will also be ads running. All right, and if you're not able to donate through Cash App or PayPal or whatever, Venmo, feel free to watch the ads because that will definitely help, and that's a way that you can contribute. All right, all contributions are welcome. All right, so the time is up for small talk. It's time to rethink politics. All right, and it looks like we have a new follower, which is awesome. Thank you. Definitely appreciate it. All right. So I have a couple notes here, and then we're going to get into this. All right. And I'm going to ask you guys some questions. This is going to be interactive, and I'd like you guys to answer them. I always go back and watch these to see what suggestions people leave. All right. So in my last video, I talked about retaliation. The Juneteenth nonsense was the final straw for me. The final straw for me probably should have been long ago. But since I can talk about it, and that's the most recent thing, I'm about done. All right? So like I said, in my opinion, and you can type it in the comments if you agree or disagree, it's time to put aside differences and start working together on a retaliatory plan. All right, but there has to be stages, and this thing has to be organized. And in this video, I'd like to just put some thoughts out there for everybody to ponder on and get some feedback on it. Maybe somebody bigger will be able to pick it up, or maybe what I do on my own will get the ball rolling. But it will definitely be a collective effort. All right. Stage one, the destruction and delegitimization of the Congressional Black Caucus. And in order to do that, the first stage of that needs to be laying the foundation for a new Black Caucus. All right. In order to do that, from the information that I gathered, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, the old Black Caucus will not be able to get removed until a new caucus is put in place. So in order for a new caucus to get put in place, grassroots politicians need to be implemented into the government, and they need to be implemented into the level of Congress. All right. And I have some brainstorming steps for this policy and for this procedure. All right, the first is to establish grassroots regulations, guidelines, and minimum activity requirements for those politicians that we put into place. All right. The next one would be standing objectives. There has to be a minimum amount of standing objectives that are put in place. Those objectives are subject to change. However, there's a minimum amount of those that must be accomplished in order for those politicians to keep their tenure. If those guidelines are not met, based on performance, we have the option to remove them. All right. Regulation and control of funding sources, because as you'll see, that is a problem. When funding comes from outside sources, they take control of the narrative. The thing with the new Black Caucus is it has to be controlled by the grassroots and by the grassroots only, which means that that's going to motivate Black businesses to bring in more revenue so that there can be more lucrative funding poured in. All right. Establish a caucus people's contract, which means that they answer to us, period. Any deviation from that is cause for expulsion. Restrict corporate funding sources to grassroots corporations only. All right. Set short-term limits. If they're doing a good job, well, it shouldn't be a problem. They'll just get voted back in. If they're doing a crappy job, we can get them out quickly. All right. Constituency-based appointments. That means that the grassroots has to be the ones who puts these people into place. And once we have enough of them in place, then the caucus can be formed. Once the caucus is formed, the old Black Caucus can get the boot. All right. So let's check out what I have laid out here for you guys. We have the definition of the word illegitimate. And the reason why we have the definition of the word illegitimate is because we live under a system of governance that is completely illegitimate. And in order to prove that it's illegitimate, I'd like to compare what we have going on currently to our government. All right. So starting with definition 2A, we have not sanctioned by law, illegal. That goes without saying. Not authorized by good usage. Congressional Black Caucus does not make good usage of their position. Published but not in accordance with rules of the relevant international code. The economic warfare going on against us is definitely against UN economic guidelines. Not rightly deduced or inferred, illogical. We have that going on now with the attempt to make Black history illegal by attacking it through critical race theory. Departing from the regular, erratic. That goes without saying. If any of you who are listening to this video have any examples of how the government is illegitimate and how the government's illegitimacy applies to this definition, please type them in. If you're watching this video live, type them in right now. If you're watching this video on the replay, type them into the comments. All right. Next, we have the definition for the word government. And we have to ask ourselves, is this what we live under? The definition of government is the body of persons that constitutes the governing authority of a political unit or organization, such as the officials comprising the government body of a political unit and constituting the organization as an active agency. Capitalized, the executive branch of the U.S. federal government. Capitalized, a small group of persons holding simultaneously the principal political executive offices of a nation or other political unit and being responsible for the direction and supervision of public affairs. Such a group in a parliamentary system constituted by the cabinet or by the ministry. The organization, machinery, or agency through which a political unit exercises authority and performs functions, and which is usually classified according to the distribution of power within it. Now, here's where we have an issue, because according to the Constitution, we are supposed to have the most power. Yet, in this system of illegitimacy, even according to the people that created it, it's still illegitimate because the politicians answer to the people. We're not supposed to answer to the politicians. All right. I know a lot of people like Kwame Brown. I know a lot of people dislike Kwame Brown. But when he says we the people, there's a reason why he keeps repeating we're the people. Dr. Boyce Watkins talked about populist, but that's more constitutionalist because, you know, that's part of the Constitution. So next is the act or process of governing, authoritative direction or control. The continuous exercise of authority over the performance or functions for a political unit. The office, authority, or functions of governing. The term during which a governing official holds office. Moral conduct or behavior. Now, don't you find it interesting? This has nothing to do with people running it. This actually talks about assignment of duties. Pay attention to that. We've been calling this thing, this illegitimate system that we live under, a government for so long. What they do doesn't mirror any of this, does it? Let me know in the comments. All right. I want to go back to the definition of illegitimate one more time because there's an interesting example. All right. And it says, because if the government is illegitimate, science and medicine are rejected, and even the normally persuasive appeal to religion is inadequate. Then there are precious few remaining threads holding our society together. Now, the government, regardless if you want to blame Trump, if you want to blame Biden, they completely mismanaged the worldwide medical situation that we had recently. This example here of the word illegitimate talks about the government rejecting science and medicine. Even if the normally persuasive appeal to religion is inadequate, this government that we live under identifies with a certain religion. However, this government now is advocating for things that the persuasive religion would consider a, quote, abomination. Now, I'm not calling it an abomination. That's just what the government would call it. Or I'm sorry, that's just what the religion would call it. So that's where we are. All right. So let's actually talk about the old Congressional Black Caucus, shall we? A Congressional Caucus. All right, this is going to give you a little background on what exactly it is, because I have a question for you guys. Do you guys know what a Congressional Caucus is, how it works, how it's formed, how to get rid of it? This article here is key. We're going to unlock it. A Congressional Caucus is a group of Congress members who share common interests and goals. The members of the caucus periodically meet together to discuss issues of interest and direct actions which will further various causes, from sponsoring legislation to meeting with other Congress members. Numerous congressional caucuses have been organized, ranging from the large party conferences to smaller caucuses, for which vary from preserving open space to promoting initiatives which would benefit urban areas. The rules to organize a congressional caucus are fairly simple, so get your pen and pad out. Each legislative session, a prospective caucus must register as a congressional member organization through the House of Representatives by providing its name and purpose along with a list of caucus officers, which means that in chronological order, first would need to be implemented are grassroots politicians. Both House and Senate members may belong to a congressional member organization, and these organizations must follow specific rules of conduct. Such a rule which disallows the use of government funds to support the operating expenses of the caucus. Now, this is interesting because, you know what? I'm going to show this now. Now, here it says both House. Uh-oh, where did this go? You got to love it when it does this. Oh, here we go. Get rid of it. All right, there we go. I swear these ads, man, they make them tricky. So now here it says here, the rules to organize a congressional caucus are fairly simple. Each legislative session, a prospective caucus must register as a congressional member organization through the House of Representatives by providing its name and purpose, along with a list of the caucus officers. Both House and Senate members may belong to a congressional member organization, which is the caucus, and these organizations must follow a specific set of rules of conduct, such as a rule which disallows the use of government funds to support the operating expenses of the caucus. All right. Now, the interesting thing is the Congressional Black Caucus received over $500,000 in taxpayer-funded government grants. But what's interesting is that the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation is not the same thing as the Congressional Black Caucus. The Congressional Black Caucus Foundation is a not-for-profit organization that gets this money, and then they turn around and pay the Congressional Black Caucus. And that's something. Some caucuses are organized along political lines, like the Democratic and Republican Party conferences. Others link Congress members shared by a racial or religious heritage, such as the National Black Caucus and the Prayer Caucus. The bulk of congressional caucuses, however, have been formed to support specific causes, and they include congresspeople who are interested in those particular causes. All right. Can you guys think of some causes that would join a grassroots caucus together? Some caucuses include a mixture of people from both political parties, reflecting a desire to work across party lines to accomplish common goals. We would have to make sure that the grassroots caucus would be bipartisan. Others are divided in some cases. Separate caucuses can be found for Democratic and Republican supporters. Hispanic congresspeople, for example, can belong to a Republican or Democrat-oriented caucus, depending on their party affiliation. In addition to congressional caucuses, the House of Representatives and Senate are also broken up into committees, which deal with various issues of interest. Unlike committees, caucuses lack the ability to review legislation to determine whether or not it should be brought to the floor for a vote. All right. So unlike the committees, so we would also need to form a committee. All right. That's also important. That's something that I just picked up here. So in addition to the new Black Caucus, we would need a new Black committee. All right. Yeah, I'm learning this stuff just like you guys are. All right. So we would need a new Black committee as well. However, caucus members are often encouraged to talk with members of committees about issues of shared interest, and some people may have memberships on committees with deal with causes which they support in a congressional caucus. So we would need to have a pollinization of our caucus and our committee. Okay. In some cases, congressional caucuses may become quite strong, thanks to the efforts of its members and its large size. These groups can work to help elect people who will support their causes, ensuring that the strength of the caucus continues to grow over time. A political caucus may also be referenced as a coalition, task force, or study group. All right, so that's interesting. All right. So what I want to know right now is, what do you guys think about this? My question is, does anybody know how this works? Was there anybody that knew how this worked before this video? So let's see about the Congressional Black Caucus and their funding. The Congressional Black Caucus Foundation received over $500,000 in taxpayer-funded government grants. 7 foundation leaders paid themselves 6-figure salaries. So remember, type it in the comments, the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation is different than the Congressional Black Caucus. All right. See, here's the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. All right. This is their vision. We envision a world in which all communities have an equal voice in public policy through leadership, cultivation, economic empowerment, and civic engagement. Now, isn't this interesting? They say economic empowerment. Now, they sure as hell do economically empower the Black Caucus. Oh, they economically empower the shit out of them. Here go the W-2s right here. This is how much they made. $11,044,452. All right. And if you guys want to see copies of these Form 990s, I had a link in the description box. All right. So this is the mission. Their mission is to advance the global Black community. The global Black community, not the American Black community, the global Black community. So this is a problem here. We need something specific to the American Black community. All right. By developing leaders, informing policy, and educating the public. And these are horrible missions. All right. And we're going to get to mission and vision statement very soon, because you need a strong mission statement and you need a vision statement. The mission statement should show the target strategy and the market, and the vision statement should show the objectives they plan to achieve over a certain time period. This is vague and it's pointless, and that's why we're going nowhere. All right. So remember, this is the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. All right. So we're going to go to their homepage real quick, if it'll let me go there. All right, yeah. So this is it right here. All right. And they really don't do shit except for have these conferences. Like they talking about make water work. It's essential to the African American community across the United States to become more aware of the vast opportunities in the water sector, including the aims and missions of water utility of the future that promotes more community engagement, empowerment, and economic development. Well, I hope you're starting in Flint, Michigan. Are you? That's a question that people need to ask this organization here. So on the About page, all right, here's the history. African American lawmakers hold their first annual legislative conference. Congressional Black Caucus is established by 13 members. Isn't that interesting? 13. One of those interesting numbers that seems to repeat itself. 13 months of the year, because that's what there's actually supposed to be. 13 disciples, because that's what there actually is. 13 colonies. 13 olives on that olive branch. 13 arrows in the eagle's foot. 1 divided by 3 equals 33 all over the place. 13 colonies. Yeah. Friday the 13th. That's a Knights Templar number. Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, funded as a nonprofit, nonpartisan public policy research and educational institute, aka this is the money laundering joint for the Congressional Black Caucus. All right, right here. And what did I tell you? Anytime you see Dr. Martin Luther King, it's a dog whistle. CBC members and their communities led the movement to make the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King a federal holiday. So these people been making dumb stuff holidays since 1983. All right. So we don't need a timeline because we already know that it's empty. They haven't done anything. We don't have reparations yet. All right. So let's go back here. Remember, Congressional Black Caucus Foundation is the money laundering operation that funds the actual Congressional Black Caucus. Congressional Black Caucus is the actual part that's the government organization. Now, my man TD Hip Hop did an excellent video on the Congressional Black Caucus, but I'm going to go through this very briefly. If you guys want more information on the Congressional Black Caucus, go check out his channel. All right, he got a good video on there about it. Since its establishment in 1971, the Congressional Black Caucus has been committed to using the full constitutional power statutory authority and financial resources of the federal government to ensure that African Americans, there we go, and other marginalized communities in the United States have the opportunity to achieve the American dream. I'd like a rundown of how they've been doing that, allegedly. And why are they serving other marginalized groups? The committee and the caucus that we would have to form to get them out of there would have to specifically only deal with American descendants of slavery or foundational Black Americans, however you want to categorize yourself. Remember, that's the reason why they always discourage people from playing, quote, identity politics. Because as long as you don't have an identity, your causes are unorganized. This is unorganized. This is talking about African Americans. You know what I mean? We need to be talking about American Black people. So this is what it says, as part of their commitment, the CBC has fought for the past 48 years to empower these citizens and address their legislative concerns by pursuing a policy agenda that includes but is not limited to the following. So this is their policy agenda here. Reforming the criminal justice system and eliminating barriers to reentry. This is the top on their list, which is stupid because we're supposed to be dealing with Black people and this is dealing with criminals. Combating voter suppression. Again, we're supposed to be dealing with Black people. Expanding access to world-class education from pre-K through post-secondary level. Again, we're supposed to be dealing with Black people. So as you can see, none of these are Black people specific. We can go all the way down this list and none of this is specific to Black people's needs. All right. Expanding access to quality, affordable healthcare and eliminating racial health disparities. Expanding access to 21st century technologies, including broadband. What the hell? Seriously? Is that why they gave Obama phones? Strengthening protections for workers and expanding access to full and fairly compensated employment. Expanding access to capital contracts and counseling for minority. There we go, using that word minority. Got to get that out of there. No, we also need to, for the committee and for the caucus, make a list of unacceptable terms that can never be used for policies that we would like to see pushed forward. Minority would be one of the terms that's never used. We'd have to create a general definition of how we define ourselves, and that would be Black people or American descendants of slavery or ADOS or whatever you want to call it, foundational Black Americans, whatever the general agreed upon cultural identity is. Because as long as we use a cultural identity, they can't say that we're being racist because that's the culture that brings us all together. They can't say we're being exclusionary by race. Hispanic is a culture. Filipino is an Asian culture. You know what I'm saying? If we say that we're American descendants of slavery, we can say this isn't for Black people, it's for American descendants of slavery. So you can't say that we're being racist. You see how that works? You got to use the same word games that they use, all right? Promoting U.S. foreign policy initiatives in Africa and other countries that are consistent with the fundamental right of human dignity. Well, that's interesting because it's still really bad over in Africa. So that's something that's failing. So it looks like they're doing horrible at all of their objectives here. All right. So then you have to ask yourself the question, if they're doing so bad at all of their objectives, why is this foundation net income looking like this? $11 million? Do you feel that you've gotten $11 million worth of service from the Congressional Black Caucus? I sure as heck don't. Here we got a total revenue of $6,197,032. Like, seriously? So I'm gonna show you exactly where all this money went. All right, and that's what this article here talks about. The Congressional Black Caucus Foundation was awarded more than $500,000 in taxpayer-funded government grants since 2010, records show. 7 of its leaders additionally paid themselves 6-figure salaries. All right, so they made themselves high-value people, according to the group's most recent tax filings. The CBC Foundation, a nonprofit that is separate from the Congressional Black Caucus. Remember, I said that the CBC Foundation is separate from the Congressional Black Caucus. CBC Foundation, remember, this is the front company. All right. This is the front company. See how it says ways to give? They get you to give the money. All right. Once you give the money, then they funnel it back into the paychecks of the Congressional Black Caucus. All right? They funnel that money back into the Congressional Black Caucus. So who do you think they're doing the bidding of? They're doing the bidding of whoever gives the biggest amount of money to the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. So what we need to do is we need to take this sheet of paper here and trace all this $11 million back to every payer source. And the payer source with the highest bidding, I guarantee you, is the payer that is getting the most objectives pushed forward, while they push an advertisement that makes it look like those objectives are being done for you. All right? Despite its separation from the Congressional Black Caucus, a number of members sit on its board of directors. Not only is this thing separate from the Congressional Black Caucus, but Congressional Black Caucus members sit on its board of directors. That basically means that this organization has a checkbook and members of the Congressional Black Caucus have a blank check. That's what that means, all right? These representatives include Sheila Jackson Lee, who chairs the group, Keith Ellison, Hank Johnson, Emmanuel Cleaver, Elise Hastings, Gwen Moore, Terry Sewell, and Brenda Lawrence. Individuals from major corporations, there you go, also have a spot on the group's board. Lonnie Johnson, who serves as counsel at ExxonMobil, Earl Jones, the senior director of governmental affairs at Comcast, that's a cable company. Emmett Vaughn, the director of the Diverse Business Empowerment Office at Exelon. So here we go. And then we got ExxonMobil. So we got oil and telecommunications, one of the nation's largest electric companies. And we got utilities. All right. Hunter Biden knows about those utilities companies and how well they pay. And these people all have places on the board. So they have to be on the board because they contribute. ExxonMobil, Comcast, Exelon, and Comcast, Exxon, and Exelon. Those are probably the three largest contributors. All right. The group strives to achieve their goals by facilitating the exchange of ideas and information to address issues affecting the Black community, providing leadership development and scholarship opportunities to educate the next generation of leaders. What they basically mean is to indoctrinate the next generation of bootlegs. That's what they mean. Promoting public health and financial empowerment and developing strategic research and historical resources for the public, according to their website. The foundation received its first federal grant in 2010 from the Department of Health and Human Services for $120,000. In 2011, the group pulled in an additional $120,000 in grants. In 2012, $119,774 was given to the foundation. In 2013 and 2014, the foundation received a total of $226,638 from the government. The group was also awarded tens of thousands more in government contracts in addition to the grants, according to data from usaspending.gov. The last available Form 990 from the foundation shows that $1,014,142 of the foundation's expenditures went towards salaries, with 7 employees pulling in more than 6 figures. Shawnice Washington, the foundation's president, chief executive officer, pocketed $260,000 in 2014. Samuel Rodriguez, and that guy sounds very Latino, the senior director of finance and administration, received $133,539. Now, I find this interesting that there's a Latino man on the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. All right. Tasha Cole, the vice president of research development, and Shirta Sterling, the vice president of communications and marketing, were both paid $126,500. Marjorie Innocent, who probably is not so innocent, the vice president of research and programs, earned $125,363. Sharon Holloway, the senior director of human resources, made $121,658, while Krista Haggins, the vice president of external affairs, hauled in, and she probably did have to haul it with a damn U-Haul because that's so much money, $120,582. All right. That same year, the foundation handed out 323 scholarships totaling $600,841. 73 recipients received stipends of $277,025. The foundation gave $25,000 to other foundations. The foundation did not return requests or comments by the press at this time. All right. So what do you guys think about that? So now we know where the money goes. Now we know who the major donors are. Do you think ExxonMobil, Comcast, and Exelon really care what's going on with black people? Or do they have an interest in oil and power markets? All right. Again, this is the W-2 of this organization, the 990, which is the equivalent basically for the filings for the income. This is like what you fill out for your job. You guys got the same lines except for it's the nonprofit version. All right. So we may have to one of these days do a live stream where we just go through this line by line and trace the money. What do you guys think about that? I could show y'all some of my cost accounting skills from another life. All right. So now, factcheck.org, they asked the question, the Congressional Black Caucus, is it for blacks only? Is the Congressional Black Caucus racially exclusive? Yes, it never had a white member in its 36-year history. However, its stated mission is to work for America's neglected citizens, whatever their color. So I believe there may be some unspoken reason. This is one of the reasons why there's been a barrier to ethnically categorize black people. You notice that everybody else has an ethnic categorization. Us, we're just black. If we identify everything based on race, they'll turn around and say that it's racist, despite the fact that we're the ones that experience the racism, because the only identifier that we have is race. The key is to get a unified ethnic American identity. And once we do that, we'll be able to establish the committee and establish the caucus. And we can establish it based on our American identity and not based on our race. And that way we can be exclusive, but not mutually exclusive, and not mention race. All right. What exactly is the Congressional Black Caucus? Is it a racially exclusive group? And if so, how can such a group exist within Congress? I don't know, the same way slavery can exist within the country. The CBC has always been an all-black organization. It was founded in 1971 with 13 members. And the fact that it was founded with 13 members means that it was part of the what? Go along, get along. It is currently made up of 42 House members and 1 senator, Barack Obama of Illinois. All are African American, all are Democrats. And you see, Barack Obama was on there. If we had one for American ethnicity only, Barack Obama wouldn't be able to be on there because he's not the same ethnicity as us. But do you see how they do it? This is why when I tell you guys, they turn around and get these XYZ people, then they say, this is your black person, and they repeat it until people start to believe it because they look like us. Now, here's the thing. Again, I'm not trying to be divisive at all, because we know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. However, this is something that needs to be done by American black people, because the reason why we're in this situation is because of what was done to American black people. Barack Obama doesn't have a legacy of slavery in his family. Barack Obama wouldn't be entitled to reparations. So culturally, he doesn't identify with that truth. And the thing is that it don't matter what somebody on the right or what somebody on the left say. You can't put me next to Barack Obama and say we're the same black person, and because Obama said this, then this is what it is. That's like telling a Mexican person you need to deal with your MS-13 issue. No, MS-13 doesn't have anything to do with Mexico. It has to do with El Salvador. But because they're Latino, you want to turn around and take one ethnic problem and put that onto the other person. What they do with us is they get these black people who aren't ethnically the same as us and then use them to try to tell us what we need to be doing. Again, if you told a Mexican person you need to deal with MS-13, they would look at you like you're insane, because MS-13 isn't a Mexican thing. It's a Salvadorian thing. If you told a Salvadorian, hey, you guys need to deal with those nietas that you have in the prisons, they would look at you and say, what are you talking about? Because nietas are Puerto Rican. You see how everybody has an ethnic identity, but we don't? So the population at large, the media, and the government can just dump people that appear like us on us. This is how they use race against us and then turn around and when we call it out, call us racist. Remember, we live in a system of illegitimacy, so anything that's supposed to make sense is always going to be inside out, upside down, opposite, and inverse. It's never going to make sense. You have to completely retwist it around and put it in front of a mirror in order to make it halfway make sense. All right? Everything requires decoding. That's why it's so important to start teaching your kids coding, not just, for dealing with politics, or dealing with the coming AI age. All right. So, and of course, the organization's no whites policy was tested most recently last year by a newly elected House member, Stephen I. Cohen of Tennessee, a white man who represents a 60% black district previously held by Harold Ford Jr. During Cohen's 2006 campaign, he was quoted as saying if he was elected, he would try to become the first white member of the Congressional Black Caucus. But shortly after being sworn in the following January, Cohen told another reporter that he dropped his bid after hearing from several current and former caucus members that whites need not apply. And the thing is like, I find it interesting. Okay, you're sitting here telling white people that they need not apply while you're sitting there taking up the seats and not doing anything for black people. Now, am I saying that white people should replace black people in any of these caucuses? Absolutely not. But what I'm saying is it's highly hypocritical for the Congressional Black Caucus to be saying that when they've been just as toxic as the people in the government who are similar to this man who tried to enter the Black Caucus. All right. So I don't think that we need to go any further into that. I will link the description of this into the description box so it is available for you all to read. All right. So remember I told you about those people who pad the pockets of the Congressional Black Caucus? I'm not going to read this because this kind of stuff gets people in trouble. But what I want you to do is read along with me and fill in the blank where I pause. Congressional Black Caucus, deep in the lobby's pocket. The Congressional Black Caucus is bought and paid for political ally of the planet's last remaining apartheid state, blank. That the CBC has consistently as a bloc voted to send billions of US taxpayer dollars to provide weapons for a foreign government that oppresses another people of color, the Palestinians, and nothing less than shameful. Cynthia McKinney was the last CBC member to take principled stances on Palestine. So this is interesting. They sent billions of dollars to this cause while telling us they don't have anything for us when it comes down to our reparations. So what they do is, because these people put money in their pockets, they do what these people tell them to do. When Kwame Brown is talking about, quote, XYZ Zaddy, there you go right there. Who's your Zaddy? So now here it says Debbie, this person here, this last name here, embodied the enormous influence that American blank have within the Democratic Party. A blank with deep communal involvements who was a key pillar of support for the mainstream pro-blank lobby in Congress and within the party. This last name here was both chairman of the Democratic National Committee, remember we need a committee, and a member of Congress sitting on the powerful House Committee on Appropriations. So there you go, this individual sitting on the powerful House Committee on Appropriations. And if you know what appropriations means, that basically means handing out the money. A panel that votes on all major government expenditure. See, there you go. This article is not about this particular individual, but of the influence of who and what she represented as a chair of the Democratic National Committee until taken down by Julian Assange, and still represents in Congress the interests of blank and the power of its domestic supporters over the Black American political establishment, and represented by the Congressional Black Caucus. And remember what I told you about W.E.B. Du Bois, Martin Luther King, and Henry Motzowitz. All right. To be sure, the CBC subjugation by what is generally referred to as the blank lobby is not unique. Thanks largely to American blank having long been the Democratic Party's major source of funds, estimated by reliable sources to be at least 60% in every election cycle. 60% of the Democratic's funds come from this particular area. And remember, this particular topic that we're talking about, remember they mentioned Barack Obama being the first being a black member of this caucus. Now go back and watch my video about Barack Obama and watch my video about the Boule Society, and all of this should start to come together for you. If it's not coming together for you, then type it in the comments. But if you know exactly where I'm going with this, if you've watched my videos before, then you know exactly what time it is. All right. This is about time where they'll try to demonetize your account. You know what I'm saying? So when we come up with these kind of things, it's important in business, if you have any kind of strategy, to have a strong mission statement. So for those interested, I'm going to tell you exactly what a mission statement is. And y'all should type in some examples of an adequate mission statement for an undertaking like this. All right. A mission statement is a short statement of why an organization exists, what its overall goal is, identifying the goal of its operations, what kind of products or services, its primary customers or market, and its geographical region of operation. All right. So we can make this very simple. What kind of products or services does it provide? Empowerment, reparation, protective policy, policy that fosters success. Primary customers will be descendants of American slaves, foundational Black Americans. Its geographical region would be United States, to be exclusive to the United States, and American descendants of slavery or foundational Black Americans who are American citizens abroad. All right. It may include a short statement of such fundamental matters as the organization's values or philosophies, business main competitive advantages, or desired future state. And that's what we would need to put in there, is a desired future state, which is the vision statement. Remember I told you about the vision statement? That's what they had, but their vision statement is whack. A mission is not simply a description of an organization by an external party, but an expression made by its leaders of their desires and intent for the organization. The purpose of a mission statement is to communicate the organization's purpose and direction to its employees, customers, vendors, and other stakeholders. A mission statement also creates a sense of identity for its employees. Organizations normally do not change their mission statements over time, since they define their continuous and ongoing purpose and focus. All right. According to Chris Bart, professor of strategy and governance at McMaster's University, a commercial mission statement consists of three essential components: a key market, contribution, and a distinction. All right. So those are things to note as well. From the mission statement, we should be able to derive what the vision would be. And the vision would be to make Black people the premier model, overachieving, exemplary, representative ethnicity and culture here in the United States, with goals of maintaining continuous improvement. That sounds good enough. A vision statement is an inspirational statement of an idealistic emotional feature of a company or group. Vision describes the basic human emotion that a founder intends to be experienced by the people the organization interacts with. It grounds the group so that it can actualize some existential impact on the world. I think I did pretty good on that. What do you guys think? All right. A vision statement provides direction. It sets a course towards the future. All right. So if you guys listen to my man TD Hip Hop, he said that his estimate, what did he say? I think it was 2030. By 2030, Black people would be done. So an immediate vision statement that can be created would be to be politically competitive and sustained by 2030. That's an example. All right. That tells people in the organization what the group believes, how to behave, and what kind of decisions to make without explicitly doing so. As a result, so basically also the mission and vision statement should be dual purposed, because the mission and vision statement could be, quote, the bare minimum code. You know how everybody says getting on code? Okay, well, getting on code will be Black people following the mission and vision statement of the caucus and the committee. All right. That would drive everybody to have the same interests as far as voting, as far as minimum policy requirements and different things like that. Unifying, standardizing, you know what I'm saying? Getting organized. As a result, a vision, to have a vision means to imagine a world that does not yet exist and intends to inspire people to make it a reality. For an individual, organization, company, what that person or company does and how they do it have nothing to do with its vision statement. Products and services that one wants to provide are never mentioned in a vision. If it did, the company's vision would be limited to only producing what was mentioned in the vision. And if you remember, I said continuous improvement. So if we're continuously improving, and that means that the vision statement is organic, which gives it flexibility to be adjusted in areas that we may need to tweak or adjust. You know what I'm saying? A vision statement should be written in infinite terms and is not changeable. Once it's decided, it's locked. If the company changes the vision based on events like market conditions, current technologies, or social media trends, the company risks the very foundation for its creation. And as you can see, that's exactly what happened to the Congressional Black Caucus, which is one of the reasons why it has to be destroyed. If it changes its visions on a whim, it will inevitably perform poorly, financially, operationally, technologically, or all of these, because it's making decisions based on near-term results only. There you go. The vision is not a roadmap, strategy, or product service specification execution plan, but it does guide all of these. Vision should not be confused with a mission. A mission is time-bound, contains specific goal, purposes for the task, and can be altered and changed based on near real-life, real-time conditions of the business. It is what the leader wants to accomplish right now. It is finite. The proper formula for realization of a vision must contain the intended emotion of the founder, will project, plus the impact that emotion will have on anyone other than the group or individual that created it. If it is written in selfish terms, it will have never have the intended impact. The statement must be crafted so as to give something to other people. All right. So a consensus does not exist on the characteristic of a good or bad vision statement. Commonly cited traits include concise, able to be easily remembered and repeated, clear, defines a prime goal, time horizon, defines a time, future-oriented, describes where the company is going rather than the current state, stable, offers a long-term perspective and is unlikely to be impacted by a market or technology changes, challenging, not something that can be easily met and discarded, abstract, general, enough to encompass all of the organization's interests and strategic direction, and inspiring. It must motivate employees, which will be us, and is something that employees view as desirable. Because remember, like Professor Black Truth said, the code dictates the activity. So we would be employees of the code, all right? So the vision statement may fill the following functions of a company. It may serve as foundations for a broader strategic plan. It may motivate existing employees and attract potential employees by clearly categorizing the company's goals and attracting like-minded individuals. Focus company efforts and facilitate the creation of core competencies by directing the company to only focus on strategic opportunities that advance the company's vision. Help companies differentiate from competitors, e.g. profit is a common business goal. And however, this is an indirect identification of the target. Profit is merely a result of the activities a business performs, and the company becomes profitable by performing activities that are in agreement with the vision statement. Take Apple, for example. Creating great products is a central tenet of their vision, and as a result, they are a $1 trillion company. All right. So, hopefully, after listening to this video, you are inspired. Because the time's up for small talk. It's time for us to rethink politics. And I'm thinking of destroy and rebuild. And I think that we can do it. I think that if we use a strict business framework, we can create the foundations, we can set the goals, we can set the timelines, we can get the people who are ready to do it, and we can jumpstart this with a group of people. Question is, are you in that group? So, with that being said, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. All right, if you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice, smash the like button, drop your boy a comment, share the video out, watch it all the way through to the end, and check out the next recommended content. And I will catch you all on the next video, or in Washington. Peace.
Spare me this mockery of justice!